Hello everybody, how are you guys doing? My name is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and welcome back. So the focus of today's video is Nintendo and their innovation, which is something that they've been known for pretty much most of their time in the video game industry, of course, which dates back to 1985 with the NES. And they've had a lot of monumental moments of innovation and genuine creativity that has really pushed themselves as a company forward, as well as the video game industry, of course. And with their newest console, the Switch, being so cool and so successful and innovative in a lot of really cool, fun ways, I thought it would be interesting to discuss if the Switch in and of itself might actually be Nintendo's best innovation ever. Now, it's a really big question. It's a lot of fun to think about. As I realized that this was a cool topic to discuss on Rule of Two Review, I started to think about all the previous things that Nintendo has done that's been so great, all of the times that they've maybe messed up and done things that haven't been so great. And it's just kind of a blast to think about all of the best and worst things that Nintendo has done throughout their 30-some-odd years in the gaming industry, and also really focus on how cool and fun and innovative and unique the Switch really feels. I just started playing Skyrim on the Switch, and I cannot get over how cool it is to play a game like Skyrim portably on the Switch when it runs and looks as great as it does on the console. And it just got my brain thinking in all of these really cool, fun ways. So when I think of previous Nintendo innovations, I mean, there's a lot that don't even have to be specifically console or gimmick related. And of course, the word gimmick can be applied in a positive or a negative way. When it comes to Nintendo, for myself, with the rare exception, I would never use gimmick as a bad thing. Some people might, and I mean, to each their own, I guess. But to me, the Nintendo gimmick has actually mostly been used in a really positive way. But that being said, there are so many different times where Nintendo did great things, not even console related. The NES D-pad, that was a Nintendo controller innovation back in the 80s. That is now an industry standard. Shoulder buttons, an industry standard. Analog stick, an industry standard. Motion controls, an industry standard. That seems a little bit weird. Anyway, moving on. Portable 3D gaming. That's not quite right. Ah, there we go. Portable 3D gaming. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, joking aside, obviously you get the point, and Nintendo has made some pretty amazing innovations that have changed the shape of gaming forever, ever since they introduced them. And, you know, there's a laundry list of things, much more than those couple of things that I discussed there, but let's bring it back to the main focus, which is really the console space and the console innovations and the way that they've tried to change the way their hardware itself actually functions and how the gamer and the user actually interacts with it. That's kind of been their big focus for the last couple of generations. And sure, changing the way the controllers look and feel and play and the buttons and the capabilities is absolutely part of their innovation. That is a hardware innovation as well, and we're even still going to have to get into that with their console stuff. But I want to get more kind of centered and focused around the concepts that defined their last couple of hardware generations and how those have been great innovations, and then how it compares to the Switch. So through the ups and the downs of all of their different innovations and quirky, weird, gimmicky, wacky ideas, although they haven't all succeeded and landed, obviously, I still very much enjoy and appreciate almost all of them. I think that they've almost only ever done really great things. Whether or not some of them took off with the general public and if they sold well and made a lot of money for Nintendo or not, I've still enjoyed most of them, even the ones that haven't succeeded. Obviously, the Virtual Boy is like the big outlier there, is the one thing that we all know really just didn't work and just wasn't quality. And I've joked about it before. I own a Virtual Boy. You've seen it. I've put it on camera. I do own a Virtual Boy. And I appreciate what they were trying to do. But it obviously it was way too early. And it was just not applied and done correctly. You know, it was a cool idea, man. I appreciate that Nintendo tried to do this back in the 90s. And the concept was really cool and exciting, man. I was a teenager when it was coming out. So I was like, cool, a Virtual Boy. And it just turned out to not be that great. But everything else they've done, even the ones that haven't succeeded, I've really enjoyed, even though they've been very polarizing. So when I think of the more relevant hardware innovations that factor into this conversation and the Nintendo Switch, for me it starts with the DS. Yes, the original Nintendo DS, which launched back in 2004. I was working for GameStop at the time. I went to E3 that year. I got to see it and play it for the first time before anyone else in the world got to even see what the thing looked like. Internet video didn't give us all of the immediate information about new hardware reveals as much at that time. So we literally got to be some of the first people to see and play it, and it was really exciting. And it was a huge gamble, man, coming off of the Game Boy Advance line, which was so crazy successful. And I remember that, like, people were excited about it, but they weren't overjoyed for it. And the PSP was also introduced at the same time. Very stiff competition that I think was immediately more appealing to people because it was so flashy and fancy and had the PS2 level graphics. And it just felt like the more adult, cool gamer kind of device than the DS. But lo and behold, man, within that first year of the DS launching, it turned out to absolutely be the better machine with the better gaming library, and the 2-screen and the touchscreen gaming that the DS brought into the world turned out to be fantastic, and the best games taking advantage of what the DS did were blowing our minds and were selling like crazy. And before you knew it, the DS became one of the absolute best-selling pieces of hardware and hardware families of all time. Like number 1 or number 2, it's like you got the PS2, you get the Game Boy family, and then you get the DS family. And those 3 are like the 3 best-selling pieces of hardware families ever. And so that was a great innovation. That was, whether you call it a gimmick, positive or negative, that was a great innovation. 2-screen, touchscreen, portable gaming. I thought it was fantastic, and it was a big shift for the gaming industry. The next biggest innovation for Nintendo, arguably their most important, is the Nintendo Wii and the Wii Remote and Nunchuck. It's funny how people always say, oh, the Wii Remote and the Wii Remote and the Wii Motion Plus, this great thing. And it's like, well, to me, it might seem kind of silly, but I throw the Nunchuck along with it. To me, it's the combination of Wii Remote and Nunchuck that I just found so fantastic. And it wasn't just, I have this thing that lets me do cool motion things or whatever, or waggle or whatever, but it was that I had the complete controller normal experience in a wholly new and different way with both hands, including that Nunchuck. That also had gyro things that you could do certain things with. And man, I thought it was great. Obviously, it's important to talk about because it's Nintendo's most successful home console or piece of hardware they've ever made. And again, I guess that's kind of tricky because the Game Boy and DS families did sell more than the Nintendo Wii, to be fair. So I guess it depends on what you look at it. The Wii really had only the one iteration, and it was their home console that was its one thing that sold over 100 million units, and it was so crazy successful, and that's why to me it's a big deal. And that motion gaming and what the Wii Remote did, some people got more and more turned off by it over the years, and I do understand why, because it wasn't as incredible and, you know, one-to-one motion and stuff as a lot of us wanted, but it still was a big deal. I think it was fantastic. The one problem I have is I think that by the time all these other garbage companies and their garbage shovelware games started making it onto the system because they saw how crazy surprising it was, I feel like, unfortunately, the ratio of quality games and quality Wii Remote gameplay to garbage games and garbage Wii Remote gameplay was not, it was too low, I guess would be the word. It was like, you know, 1 out of every 7 games was actually a good game, and I feel like that ratio was just, unfortunately, too low. That being said, it was their most successful home console. It changed Nintendo, it changed the entire video game industry, and motion controls in a variety of different ways are an industry standard today. That's why Microsoft tried the Kinect even though it didn't succeed. That's why Sony tried the Move. That's why the DualShock 4 has motion control and sensor aiming and stuff built into it. Nothing really uses it that well, but it does exist. And we've gotten used to it with our portables and our handhelds and the Switch and so many other things. And the Wii Remote and that pointer gameplay, when it was used right, was so good. And I will always love the Wii Remote era. I thought that it was a really fantastic idea. And it was something that Nintendo took a huge gamble on, and people thought it was really weird and crazy. Then they started to get their hands on it. Then they played Wii Sports. Then everyone and their moms started buying them, and you had hospitals bringing them in for like rehabilitation for older patients. It was just insane. It was just the coolest thing. And even though it's lower on my list of Nintendo consoles and my personal favorites, it was a great console, and the innovation of the Wii Remote was groundbreaking. So now let's talk about the Wii U real quick. And I know this is a tricky conversation because the poor Wii U, man. You know, the little console that could not, unfortunately, is what it is. But you guys, you're familiar with me, you know my opinion. I love the Wii U. I mean, Nintendo messed up so many times with the Wii U. The system is a failure. It was not a success. It did not sell well. It did not change gaming the way I think Nintendo would have wanted it to. That being said, it did try some innovative ideas, and ideas that I really like. The gamepad. I know, y'all hate the gamepad. Everyone thinks it's dumb, it's a Fisher-Price toy, it was really cumbersome, it made the operating system too slow, we could never use more than one gamepad like Reggie promised. All of those complaints are true, and I totally get it, man. I would never try to change anyone's mind on that. That being said, just like with the Wii Remote, for myself, when the gamepad was a brand new thing, before the Switch was introduced into our lives, you guys, it was a crazy idea to consider using a second touchscreen on my home console experience on this surprisingly comfortable controller. And again, just like the Wii Remote, it was those times when the gamepad was used properly, which was, again, not as many times as we would have liked for sure, but there was still several games that used it very well. And for me, it's me focusing my attention on when it was used right that makes me excited about it and gives me fond memories of the gamepad, and why I still love using it whenever I have a reason to turn my Wii U on and want to play a game. It takes advantage of the gamepad. I mean, I was into it, man. It worked for me. It had a speaker on it. It had that touchscreen. It was a second screen. I could do cool stuff like this. The way Zombie U or Deus Ex or Pikmin or Splatoon used it was incredible. And to me, especially for the first 2 years of the Wii U, before we started to really realize that Nintendo was going to move away from it pretty soon, I was like, this is great. This is a whole new way to play gaming that I love. I love these games that are using it well. And I just, honestly, I loved it so much, I just wanted more games to use it properly. And that didn't happen, so it became an innovation that didn't catch on with people, and that wasn't a success. But in my mind, it was a very noble attempt at doing something cool and unique and new and fresh, and it worked for me. And so that was another innovation that, again, Nintendo tried, and I thought was pretty cool. And so this brings us full circle to the Nintendo Switch. The current thing, the brand new thing, and the thing that we're all loving and the world is freaking out about, and all these great games are coming out and they're selling well, and you know, Nintendo's making some of the best games they've literally freaking ever made in their, again, over 30 years in the gaming industry. And so the Switch is a hit, but is it their best innovation? Is it the best new idea that Nintendo has ever tried to introduce? I'm going to say, you guys, if we remove their controller innovations like a D-pad and an analog stick, man, that analog stick might literally be the best thing Nintendo's ever done. But if we stick more specifically to the consoles and the hardware and the business models, whereas all these things I've discussed with the DS, Wii, Wii U, and Switch are like a business model Nintendo created around their innovation, I am going to say, yes, I do think that this is Nintendo's best innovation yet. And I had to really think about this before I decided to get on camera and make a video, because I really wanted to praise the Wii Remote, and I really think that what Nintendo did with the DS was the beginning of turning the tides for the company and becoming the most profitable and successful they'd ever been. These innovations were huge. But for me, I think the reason the Switch, I think, is their best innovation is because it's the most fully delivered on promise. You know, the concept is so simple, yet it's so fantastic and new feeling. And I'm sure, you know, some people might be able to bring up these weird one-off pieces of hardware or ideas or attempts to do similar things that the Switch does before the Switch came out, like a weird, I don't know, maybe like a weird pass-through for your cell phone that you can put on your TV, or some weird laptop gaming peripheral that lets you do TV things, and it's like maybe a similar idea. But obviously, it's not as successful as the Switch, and there is no way it emulated the proper AAA and amazing indie game experience the way the Switch does it, and the Nintendo game experience the way the Switch does it. Not to mention, the Switch has the other fantastic advantage of the Joy-Cons and the portable nature that's TV and it's handheld, and you can take it with you, and it's seamless, like instant transmission from handheld to TV and back again. That's the difference maker here. And the concept made sense, and it was exciting when Nintendo first showed it off, and we all wanted to believe on it. But those of us who are smart and have been around Nintendo for a while, decades, we know, okay, it looks great, we want to believe in it, but man, Nintendo messes up a lot, so let's be a little bit cautious going in. We're excited, but let's also be cautious going into the launch of this thing, and let's see what the Switch really is like. Will it deliver on the promise? And I reminded myself of those times where the Wii Remote is great, but didn't always work and was sometimes used as a waggle garbage thing. The gamepad was great, but very often didn't work, and companies didn't take advantage of it, or the touchscreen didn't do the cool things you wanted. The DS was fantastic, but some games that released on it were really crappy and totally ruined the whole two-screen concept. So maybe the Switch was going to come out and be a cool idea that really just didn't ultimately deliver on the promise enough to be this amazing innovation. And luckily, that hasn't been the case. The Switch does everything that Nintendo promised it would do and more. And it is playing a game like a Skyrim or a Mario Odyssey on the Switch, portable and TV and back and forth again, and seeing what this experience is like and taking it with me into my living room or into bed and playing a game as epic like this, just laying in bed or even out in the world. It's insane. And I'm one of those people that loves the freaking Joy-Cons. I think HD Rumble is fantastic. It's like a weird superfluous thing that maybe a lot of people don't care about, but to me is really cool and unique and immersive, and it brings you into the game experience in a whole different way, and developers are taking great advantage of it. I expect Metroid Prime 4 to really take cool advantage of the Joy-Cons. We're probably going to get some neat motion stuff. We've seen other great motion games like ARMS and Splatoon that really deliver on what the Joy-Cons can do. And so to me, I'm seeing this weird Swiss Army knife of a console that does this amazing console experience gaming anywhere on the planet. And it's hard for me not to see this innovation as the best. Because again, the Wii Remote was incredible and probably changed gaming more than the Switch will change gaming. So there's a strong case for the Wii Remote. But again, to me, the difference is there were so many examples of the Wii Remote not really being delivered on, and games or developers not taking proper advantage of it. Even Nintendo sometimes didn't take the right advantage, and sometimes it went from this amazing game-changing motion control to just doing this and feeling like an idiot. The Switch, that's not the case. Whether you're docking, you're undocking, you're Joy-Conning, you're Pro-controlling, you're sitting on your couch, you're at work, you're at home on your TV, it's doing the thing the Switch is meant to do, and it's always running at 100% awesomeness. And that is the coolest thing. Like, there won't be any examples of waggling your Wii Remote or garbage gamepad usage. Like, there won't be that. By the time the Switch is done, every game, everything Nintendo has ever put on the console will have been the ultimate Switch experience. And so, in my opinion, the Switch is easily Nintendo's best innovation ever. So that's it. That's my personal opinion on Nintendo's innovation, their incredible history at innovating, and the fact that their newest and most current thing, I actually think, is the best idea they've ever had and the best usage and application. And that is what we're seeing in this incredibly strong, confident, and successful Nintendo here in 2017. Now, it'll be up to Nintendo to keep this momentum rolling. They have to deliver on this. They have to keep the great games and the cool, unique ideas and Joy-Con usage or whatever rolling into 2018 and 2019 and beyond for however long the Switch actually lasts. I certainly believe that they will ultimately do that, and I think the Switch is going to go down in history as this amazing, just knockout success. And so that's where we are, you know. I want to hear you guys discuss. What do you think of all of Nintendo's innovations? What are the ones that stand out to you the most? What are the most important? What do you think is the absolute #1 best innovative idea that they've ever incorporated? Do you think it's the Switch, or do you think it's something else? Like I said, strong case for the analog stick, which is probably my actual #1, but strong case for the analog stick, strong case for the DS, strong case for the Wii Remote and the Wii. So you guys discuss that stuff below. Tell me what you think about my opinions and what you think of the Switch so far. And that is it. Thank you always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.